operation of the program.
Well, like you mentioned, justice, health, and culture. So under CCTH, they might have some kind of program for the Youth Advocate Program, and maybe African Nova Scotia Affairs, or like we mentioned, the provincial justice and provincial health.
Through the chair to the councillor, the team is very tuned to funding opportunities, and as I mentioned, we did. That's been a support that we've received from the community safety department as well to find some funding. Our team, I would say, is small and focused mainly on the delivery. So when they have the opportunity, they certainly look for funding opportunities, but it's a challenge just given the resources that we have that are trying to deliver the program. But certainly I think that's a piece of work that we can take away, and we can continue to work with community safety to see if there are other funding sources that we haven't tried yet.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Councillor Hinch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So one thing that you brought up was criteria. So I want to know, what would the criteria be?
So through you, Chair, to the councillor, I'm just looking through my notes. We're deep into the program, and I'm going to do my best to represent the program well. But certainly, they're looking at questions like acuity and those sorts of things when we do an intake. Youth are referred to the program typically it could be from schools or from other people who work with youth, and then there's an intake process that our staff do to sort of look at the basic eligibility criteria. There's also right now there's a geographic component to the program, so it's based in geographic areas. So those are some of the pieces that they look at in taking in youth into the program. Yeah.
So they have to be referred?
I believe self-referral is possible, but typically these children or youth come in as referrals from other partners.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just to respond to some of the comments that were just made by the other councillors, I just want to say that investment in a program like this, it's really advance our public safety strategy. In that strategy, which we approved, having programming for youth is recognized as a key component to community-led public safety, and which can help reduce future risks. It can help build community resilience. It helps improve our social structures, and it can help strengthen our communities, make safer social spaces, and in the end help prevent and reduce crime down the road. An investment in youth is part of, when we talk about detasking the police, this is the type of programming that our residents have been asking for, that we need different approaches to improving public safety. And while I appreciate the comments that is this really our mandate? Are we staying in our lane? Are there other avenues for funding to support this work? Public safety is actually one of our core mandates. And, I did ask in Parks and Rec and not in public safety, because I thought it would have been more of a natural fit. But, Maggie very well why it's sitting with Parks and Rec right now, and that there are ongoing discussions.
I don't have that readily. The wait lists vary. I have sort of point in time information on the wait list in terms of numbers, but I don't have a trend in front of me right now.
Okay. Would be help. I would love to see a before and after sort of thing. 6 to 12 months for at-risk youth who are in a pretty vulnerable. 6 to 12 months is a long time in a kid's life. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Austin. Deputy Mayor Mancini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You may have said this, Maggie, but I need to get the answer again, possibly. So if we fund this program, what happens to that wait list that you just stated, 6 to 12 months? What does it become then, approximately?
So there'd be a couple of things, Councillor. One thing is that we would remove the current geographic barriers on the program, so we would open up
Expand it.
the eligibility a bit more from that perspective. But then certainly our expectation would be, and we don't know what would happen like I say, without the increase, but our expectation would be that wait list would be decreased, wait time would be decreased rather.
But it could in fact become even larger because you're expanding it, right?
Potentially with the expansion, and also, like I say, we don't know what would happen. We don't know what happens in terms of overall demand. It may continue to grow. So, we don't know if we'll catch up with demand, for example. And there are various factors that go into how many, young people are referred and so on. So I can't say definitively the wait time is reduced, but certainly that's our expectation is that we'd be able to
Is your
reduce
gut
that.
feeling if we didn't expand the program, added the funding, and just got rid of the wait list? Is one better than the other? I don't know. I mean, expanding the program and we still could end up with a 6 to 12 waiting list, but now you're added numbers, or do you leave the geographical territory and just impact that community even that much greater in a positive way?
It's a fair question. I think what we find with the geographic boundaries is they're somewhat artificial in terms of where the needs are. They were originally designed to be associated to areas of high crime, but what our staff will say is that just because a crime is happening in one place doesn't mean that the people who are perpetrating that crime are
From that area
as
specifically.
well. So there's a lot of movement. So that would be one of the main reasons to sort of remove that restriction, to be able to look more at the sort of, the need of the youth to go into the program rather than having that geographic piece as a somewhat artificial barrier on the program entry.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor St. Amand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the briefing note, you also made mention of staff piloting an intervention program targeting youth younger than what the program currently services, with funding coming from federal and provincial governments. Can you speak to how that funding and the program complements the offering? And a follow-up to that would be, is there additional funding that might potentially be available? Is this a funding that is tied to the scale of the program, or is there some other escalator clause within the funding that is available for that program currently?
Through the chair to the councillor, in terms of the younger age program, the SNAP program for ages 6 to 12, there are two aspects to that. I would say one, it moves us back sort of more towards prevention. What we've seen is sort of younger youth being involved in more serious things. So sort of dialing back the age to divert children sooner from sort of risk factors and give them more skills to avoid certain outcomes. It also, what it means for the program is it relieves a bit of pressure on that low end of the age scale on the program, potentially if those interventions are successful as well. So from that's sort of the tie-in to the program and the alignment to the program itself. In terms of the funding, at this point, I'm not aware. This is really a pilot program and pilot funding, so I don't know if we've reached the point of being able to know if there could be ongoing operational funding associated to that. But certainly, like I say, it's something we look at, constrained by. Oh, Bill might have the answer for me on that question.
Madam Chair, through to the council. The funding is from the Building Safer Community Funds, federal funding for over 4 years. It's been funding a number of initiatives through the Public Safety Strategy. So, and we are in discussions with both Public Safety Canada looking for additional federal funding to continue some of the programs. So to the earlier question around accessing or looking, I think it was Councillor Young asking about we are looking for other sources of funding and continued funding. And what I can say is that there's also a rather robust evaluation program to the Building Safer Community Funds. And up to this point, I'm happy to say that my feedback from the feds is that they're very pleased with the progress that's being made. So actually, today, there is a group of people at the Sportsplex in Dartmouth doing a day-and-a-half conference on youth and violence extremism prevention. So we're looking at another aspect, and we also have individuals in the Public Safety Office also looking at a youth violent prevention program. So there's a number of programs coming together, and I just want to make sure that the program, and I should say, in 2007, in my previous life, I was involved with this when this started. So we are in constant discussion back and forth, and the fact that the program is sitting in recreation is absolutely fine. So there's no concerns about turf or anything like that. We're working very well together.
Sounds like the programs complement one another fairly well. Is there a risk of, obviously in this case we're talking specifically about the program that you're already offering and adding funding that provides the ability to scale that up. Are we looking at a seamless complement between these two programs? We're not with the federal funding providing funding for that particular area, then I would imagine that is specifically for that age group, and therefore it's not going to wind up pulling any resources away from the program that we're already offering. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Senaman. Deputy Mayor Mancini.
This is a pilot program, correct? Did I hear? No, it's not a pilot program. It's not. I want to go back to the evaluation piece again. So I realize we don't have that now, but when will we receive the evaluation? I mean, at some point in time, we should say, yes, this is working. No, it's not working. It's working so well, we need to expand it even further. But we need that data and that information to make that decision. I mean, so I'm very eager to find out when we get that.
Through the chair to the councillor, to the deputy mayor, the program was evaluated in 2011, a few years after the initiation of the program, and that was a strong recommendation to continue the program at that time based on that initial evaluation. What I mentioned is more related to data tracking, and we'll develop a dashboard that staff will develop a dashboard that will allow us to view and the public to view sort of how the program is operating in terms of numbers and that sort of thing. So that's anticipated, I expect, within the next year or so. But I would say that just to Bill's point on the funding, the other piece that we're finding good value in terms of how we work with community safety is on that research and evaluation piece where there's a strong expertise in community safety around research and evaluation. We're definitely seeing the benefits of that in Parks and Recreation on our programming as well.
I suspect the program has evolved from 2011. I mean, we're in a different place in our municipality today than we were back in 2011. Is that fair to say that it has changed or evolved?
It has, but I would say some of the core, the core elements would have program is fairly similar. I think some of the challenges and the day-to-day pieces that we see have likely changed, but and there are different trainings, and we've become more sophisticated over time. But the core sort of elements of the program would be quite similar.
And I'm sorry this has been answered already again, but I'm trying to get my head around it. So the ask today is $254,500 for this year. And so is that ongoing? Is that increasing? Could you explain that to me again, please? Sorry if I...
Certainly. No, not at all, Councillor. Yes, that would be ongoing. And the request is to increase the number of staff to support the program, but also there's obviously the per youth cost associated to the program as well. So that would expand the program by somewhere between 15 and 22 spaces for youth. So that's that would be an ongoing increase to the program.
Thank you, Maggie. Madam Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Hinch.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So looking at the briefing note, so 14 to 22 additional spaces for youth in this program. So my question is there a priority? So is it possible for, like, say if the youth is already in the system or just newly come into the system, and then court can request for service from this program and make it a priority?
Through you, Councillor, just a little bit of an answer to your earlier question, and I think it might address some of that question, although some of that I may have to follow up separately on, so pieces that our team are looking at in terms of intake are things like the risk factors that the youth is exposed to, just like, stable family around them, exposure to violence and crime, those resiliency, their level of pro-social skills, those sorts of things are some of the things
that it works. Now we're looking to help more people with it to further demonstrate that it works and to provide us with a better foundation to be able to build upon for the future. I think the complement with the younger intervention is a part of that. The outcomes between the two different programs, so the pilot at the younger age versus the fully fleshed out program that you're looking to expand at the older age, how comparable does the data wind up becoming between them? Because outcomes for a young crowd versus an older crowd, I have to imagine, look pretty different. And so, with the pilot, its success is going to be measured in different terms, and then, those kids age out of that age cohort and wind up in the next group. So how do we track their progress moving from one into the next in order to effectively manage and monitor how well the program does?
Through the chair to the council, I think on the data side of things, there are probably two aspects to it. One is more quantitative in terms of number of children in the program and wait times and those sorts of things and how quickly they move through the program.
Right.
The other piece of it is more an evaluation, a qualitative evaluation, and that's where I think you'd see the difference in terms of the younger cohort versus the older, and it, again, maybe a little beyond my depth in terms of the things that they would be evaluated for the younger children, would be, I would suggest, the same types of things in terms of resilience and pro-social skills, but they may look differently in younger children than older youth. So how that gets evaluated may be a bit different. But yeah, I guess the short answer would be, I think on the qualitative pieces, those will generally be similar. On the wrong way around. On the qualitative pieces, those will be different, and the quantitative, there'd be sort of similar markers.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor St. Amand. There are no other names on the list. Will we call for the question? Motion has passed. We're now back on the main motion as amended. Councillor Cleary.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I would like to put the following amendment on the floor: that the Budget Committee amend the motion to direct the Chief Administrative Officer to finalize the 25-26 operating budget, capital budget, and four-year capital plan for Regional Council, incorporating budget adjustment list 013, Discovery Center Biodiversity and Aquarium as outlined in attachments A and B, using $200,000 of one-time reserve funding from Options Reserve Q421.
Seconded by Councillor Cuddle. Councillor Cleary.
So a number of comments around this. So the original... There we go. The original ask was for a 5-year commitment. And given sort of the tough budget year and where things are going, and the conversations I've had with a number of councillors now, I don't think that'll fly. So what I'm looking for is a one-time commitment, just $200,000 this year, which we could take from the options reserve because it is just a one-time funding. But with the hope that if things go well, and they can report back on the status, maybe, and more support is warranted, we can have this conversation again next year to see if it's something we want to commit to. And it would be a signal from the city to the organizers of this, which is, by the way, so there's a bit of I don't want to say misinformation, but just a misunderstanding in the briefing note on this. It's not Discovery Center itself. So it's Discovery Center International, which is sort of a separate, almost like parent body to Discovery Center. They're the ones that go out, develop the technology and the intellectual property, and then actually license that to some other Discovery Centers around the world. And so they've worked with a private funder here in Canada, who's putting in, I think it's like $13 million to get this thing off the ground. Dalhousie is a big partner in this. It's going to be on the Dow campus at the edge there. And so Dow's putting in their contribution equivalent to this. Discovery Center's putting in its own contribution towards this. And we get, so it's called the Beatty Center for Marine Biodiversity. We get direct and indirect benefits from this. So for Halifax, I don't know if people know this, we have the largest concentration of ocean PhDs and researchers of any city in Canada. And so this is going to be primarily an educational center, not kind of that kitschy, SeaWorld type aquarium, or even like the Boston Aquarium. This is going to be a very unique educational focused aquarium here in Halifax. And the center will help us also do things like provide support for and beef up our application for Bee City status. With the science that's happening here. They're also going to provide and deliver Gen Action climate action program in at least 10 schools in HRM if we support this. It helps with our tourism strategy that council's approved, and it helps with our economic development plans that us and the Halifax Partnership put together. And so I do think this is worthy of consideration. I sense again that, not very many folks want to commit to it long term, but I think if we show our support and assure that the organizers and the funders of this, that we're open to having this kind of center in Halifax, that this will go a long way. And taking it from reserve, as I say, is a one-time funding, very small amount, relatively small amount in comparison of things, but it all adds up to real money. So I do hope I get your support on this for such a great facility that we would have here in Halifax.
Thank you, Councillor Cleary. Deputy Mayor Mancini.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I fully support this. I mean, we've been talking about aquariums for a long, long time. And as Councillor Cleary said, this is not the dolphins jumping up, that type of aquarium. This is education and research, and it aligns well, I think, with our climate action plan. We heard yesterday that, we hear what's happened because of the states and the possible recession that we go into, but tourism is going to increase, and this adds to that element. They do an amazing job at the Discovery Center. They're doing this in partnership, as Councillor mentioned, with Dalhousie. There was already, I think, almost $13 million to go ahead, and it's just a small amount in comparison to that. I'd like to see us have even a bigger role down the road, but I think this is responsible for us to say, look, we can't commit to long-term at this point in time, but here's something to contribute, so we recognize the efforts. This is a good project, so I fully support this. I think this is the right thing to do. I hope the rest of you do also. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Mancini. Councillor St. Amand.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree completely. I think it's an investment in the brain trust that we have in our municipality. And if only to provide them with a little bit of bridge financing effectively, to buy them a little bit of time. Because, I mean, frankly, they went to private donors and came back with a substantial percentage of what their needs were. And so there was a small gap there. And if we're able to fill that gap in the short term and give them the opportunity to go back to private donors and say, hey, the city stepped up, they support what it is that we're trying to do here. So let's talk about next year. So I support this entirely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor St. Amand. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Chair. Fully appreciate Councillor Cleary and Councillor St. Fully appreciate Councillor Cleary and Councillor St. Amand's point of view on. I think it's nice to signal to their projects that HRM is supportive of having this facility. So I'm all in on that. I'm just worried about the precedent.
Sorry. Brendan Smithson, Director of Recreational Regional Services. Through the chair to the councillor, we do have some agreements that are operational. So this it's not normally what we do, but there are some agreements, so I don't feel this would set a precedent in terms of that kind of piece from there.
You good, Councillor Steele? Have a comment, and I appreciate it seeing you wait there, Deputy Mayor. So yeah, the conversation came to CPED. It was a great conversation. We're normally, I didn't say normally, majority of the time people come and they ask for capital funding, especially when it's an outside program like this. I was not in agreement for operating funding. I build it and then ask somebody else for the sustainable funding. This is a compromise, I think, in coming from the options reserve. It doesn't come on the tax rate, but I do worry that it might telegraph a commitment ongoing for operating, and so I do have that concern. And again, we're depleting our options reserve, so again, just a caution that we're doing that. So those are my comments, and we have no other names on the list, so let's go to the vote, Mr. Clerk. Motion has passed. It's an update just of where we're at, please and thank you.
Through the chair to the chair, you're still at flat. There's been no change.
But if you feel that it's been a journey for us, it has been an amazing journey for our staff who have, before we even came to sit down here at budget, done a phenomenal piece of work and have been stellar in presenting and answering our questions and making sure that we could come to the decisions that we came to today. So to our staff team of HRM, thank you. You are appreciated more than words can say. Thank you. And now we'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Adjourned.